Most people we talk to feel stuck. They'll tell us things like, I feel behind. I wish I had more time with my family, or work is draining me. Does that sound familiar? The truth is, it's not that you don't want freedom. You just don't have a clear system to get you there. And without a system, what happens is 3 years from now, you're very likely to be in the same place that you are today. Your kids are going to be older and they won't care that your business was more successful. They'll just remember that you weren't there.
That's why we built the passive income operating system. It's the exact framework we use to design financial freedom for ourselves and for our clients, not decades from now, but today. Now, the system isn't free, but the training that shows you how it works is, and it's less than an hour. So go to infinitewealthconsultants.com/PIOS, PIOS, and take the first step to buying back your time, creating passive income, and designing the life you don't have to retire from.
Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christiansen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. We just wrapped up our interview with Eli, the travel guy. Anthony, what's the takeaway or two you had?
I tell you, it's very interesting hearing his perspective and really ways to maximize your points. And one thing he talked about is a strategy that I didn't even know you could do this, but you could pay your payroll or your mortgage or really just about any expense on your credit card. Now, he does explain that is not for everybody. However, for the ones that it is for, it can be a great strategy to maximize those points. And what also is interesting, and particularly why we had him on our podcast, is if you're incorporating the passive income operating system, one of the many advantages it has is that if it captures all the money, particularly any savings and expenses. So by using, if you're going to go on a trip and you maybe budgeted a certain amount of money, but you were able to maybe minimize that to a smaller amount through points, that's going to have that cash savings. Most of the time what happens, Cameron, we just spend that somewhere else, right? Or it just leaks somewhere. However, the advantage of incorporating the passive income operating system, that money stays in your hub. So thus that savings can be used to help you achieve your goals by creating more and more passive income. And a third thing came to mind, having these miles, and really some of these credit cards have some benefits, but the problem is I'm forgetting that I had the benefit, or I don't know when they expire. He mentioned a couple apps that you could use that are free that will help manage that for you to make sure you're maximizing all your benefits. Cam, what were your takeaways?
Great point. At the end, he wrapped up talking about those apps, and it was kind of like a rapid fire lightning round. He ran through those. And so if you guys are out there listening, make sure you stick around for those. The biggest takeaway that I had, to be honest, was what got me excited was this idea of being able to come to Eli and his team with a vision of a dream trip for my family, and then having them put everything together to get me there, right? Kind of like what you said, Anthony, a minute ago, is we've got all these cards. I'm in the same position and we get all these points, and then you got to try to figure out if it's going to fit in for you. But man, one of the things that we talk about all the time is start with the end in mind. And that's what Eli is doing and helping clients do right here. So I was excited about kind of coming up with a big dream trip for my family. So we'll probably start that conversation and then approach Eli and his team and say, hey, what do we got to do to make this a reality? So guys, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. This was our interview with Eli, the travel guy, CEO of Freedom Travel Systems. Also, we're bringing him back. We're not sure, later this year or early next year, for a joint live webinar where you guys can come in and ask him some questions, and he's going to get into some of the additional tactics that he wasn't able to share on the webinar this week. But we'll wrap it up here. Hope you guys enjoy the episode. If you're an investor or want to be, and you're ready to build passive income that exceeds your monthly expenses, you found the right podcast. Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast, where we combine the wealth building principles of Rich Dad Poor Dad with the power of the infinite banking concept to help you take control of your money and your future.
Join us as we bring insights from experts and from Cameron as well as real-world strategies and proven tools to help you create financial freedom without relying on Wall Street. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christiansen, along with our co-host, and today we've got Eli, the travel guy, with us. Eli, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cameron. Anthony, good to be here, guys. Excited to dive in.
Absolutely. I'm going to get us started here. Eli, we know that you've been helping entrepreneurs and investors unlock 6 figures worth of free travel, which we're going to dive into today. But can you take us back to the moment when you first realized that credit card points and travel rewards weren't just a perk, but also a wealth building tool?
Man, I'll tell you the first big insight into this that just completely changed the trajectory of my entire life. So I'm 23 years old. I'm about a year and a half out of college, and I went to a university near New York City called Lehigh University. And so I was a finance degree, and basically everyone that I was around, friends, I played baseball, fraternity brothers, teammates, everyone's going to Wall Street. They're going to work and make a lot of money doing, investment banking and things like that. I always had more of an entrepreneurial pull. So I was like, screw that, screw the system. I'm going to do it my way. So I went and I started building a business, which at 23 basically means I was broke. So I had all these friends that were, traveling and doing cool trips. And I was like, I have to find a more resourceful way. So I stumbled upon this credit card points thing. And I thought, okay, this seems like a scam to me. I was a big Dave Ramsey guy at the time, thought credit cards were terrible, thought anything to do with a credit card was dangerous or points were a scam. It has to be some sort of scam. So I was really skeptical. And then flash forward, and here I am making around $24,000 a year at 23 years old. I was just hustling. I was working, trying to build a business, driving Uber, coaching baseball lessons, working at a restaurant. I was doing the whole thing. But I remember walking down on the jet bridge onto an aircraft. I was going to London. And for the first time, I handed my ticket to the flight attendant, and she pointed to her right, which was my left. And she's like, "Welcome aboard, Mr. Facenda. Your seat's there, number 1A. And I look over, and it's a business class cabin with all these lay flat beds and pods and wealthy people. And I'm like, I do not belong here. And what was really cool is I had paid $6 for that ticket, and the retail value was around $6,000. And so I had done this by getting a couple credit cards, getting some points, and then redeeming them effectively, where a trip like this that would normally cost thousands of dollars cost me $6. So while that unlocked a whole new level of travel for me, it also just made me realize, okay, in life, there are ways to play the game of finance, of entrepreneurship, just more strategically. There's ways to be more resourceful throughout my entire life where I can get to the outcome that I want in a much smarter way, as opposed to everyone else that was on that plane, which had probably been, working really hard to save money to pay for that trip. I was shortcutting the entire system. So that changed my entire psychology around how to go about life, how to go about business, investing, all that stuff. And that was my first big aha moment and why it was such a game changer for me. It was basically that moment. I never looked back. So that's what brings us to today.
Well, Eli, what would you say is the number one misconception successful entrepreneurs have about points? I know a lot of them will say, well, hey, I have a ton of American Express points or Chase points. I'm fine.
Yep.
What's a misconception they may have?
Great question. I mean, there's different layers to it. On the top layer is that people think that points are some sort of monopoly money. It's not that valuable. It's not that impactful. That would be the first misconception, is it's not that big of a deal. It's just points. It's basically the same as cash back, right? I might as well just use them for gift cards or Amazon or whatever, and I'm reducing my bill. Total misconception. If you're doing that, you're leaving so much on the table. You're literally getting 10 to maybe 20% of the value that you should be getting. And for people that are spending a lot, that means 10 to 20% is relative, but that could be $50,000 to $100,000 a year worth of unforgettable memories and vacations with your family, with your loved ones. So that's kind of the first one. The second layer is that basically it's just too complicated and impossible. And that if you want to get a good deal, that means you have to fly on 9 connecting flights, or you have to go to some obscure place at a completely random time. There's no way to do it. So it can be like that if you don't know what you're doing. And that's the trap that most people fall into. These banks designed a system where it's not designed for you to win and the bank to lose. It's designed for the bank to win and for us to lose and to thank them for it, right? That's how they designed this. But they did make it gamifiable enough where there's people like me that have kind of cracked the code and are able to get the best value and the best deals, where really we're beating the banks at their own game. And so that is a huge misconception for people, is that there's basically no real opportunity, or the opportunity that exists is just too complicated. And so those would be the first two. I mean, there's many layers, but those would be the big ones.
Eli, I thought you made a great point there when you were talking about this is really just a game that we're trying to play. And so anytime I'm playing a game, I'm always looking for the rules. And then to be honest, I'm looking for kind of a cheat sheet, right? To get ahead. So is there kind of a 3-step process that you could share with our listeners and how they can kind of cheat the system here? And then I think in our pre interview, you mentioned that there's a step in there that a lot of people will skip. So maybe highlight that one as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it's a great point because even if someone has researched points before and how to use them and gone on the blogs or followed the social media accounts, what happens is you see a lot of individual tactics, right? And it's like that can be helpful in a very specific situation, but based on people's different travel goals, the cards they're using, where they live, what they spend on, all this stuff, everything changes. And so if you don't have a broader understanding of how the game works, then it becomes really complex. And what happens is that people are like, oh my God, this is too much to remember. Screw this whole thing. Like, I'm busy. I'll just focus on making more money. And I don't blame people for that, but this is a simpler way to think about it. So there's 3 main buckets that you want to focus on. If you think about like each of these is like a 1 to 10, you could rate how much you're doing these based on your specific goals. Okay. So the first one is going to be to maximize your points earnings. So this is all about getting the most possible points and the right type of points for you. Everyone's are different. You know, you guys live in Vegas. If you lived in Miami, even if you had the exact same expenses and the same travel goals in terms of where you want to go, based on the 2 different hubs, that would actually probably lead you to different cards because the airlines that you can associate with that kind of flying would be different. And vice versa, 2 people that live in Miami might have 2 different businesses, and that would mean they have different cards because certain cards earn more points on different types of expenses. So we want to be thinking about the right cards and the right expenses to earn the most amount of points back total. Okay. Now, the second step is going to be to then take those points and how do you multiply them for the highest potential value? So this year, we've redeemed our team. We have a concierge team that does this for people. We've redeemed about 100 million points for our clients, and we're getting on average 5x the standard value that like the bank would give you for points. So if you go to Amex Travel or Chase Travel or most sites, the baseline value of a point is 1 penny. So if you have, 100,000 points, that's basically worth $1,000 the standard way. Okay. If you want to book a flight that is $5,000, the inverse of that is that it's going to cost you 500,000 points because each point is worth a penny to them. But through transferring these points, this is the secret sauce. This is where you get what we call points arbitrage. You're capturing the value between how the banks charge and how the airline hotel loyalty programs charge. And there's partnerships. So when you transfer them, you'll find deals at times that are 5x the value, or another way of saying it is like the airline might charge 20% of the price that the bank does. But you have to find the right transfer partner at the right time for your specific trip. Okay. But that's how you unlock the most value out of these. And that's really the core piece that we could dive into in terms of, unlocking better travel. And then the third piece is you want to maximize those upgrades and perks. So this is where you get first class upgrade for free. You get luxury hotel suites that are $3,000 a night for a weekend stay for free. And you save 10 grand and you get an amazing experience. Free Wi-Fi, early check-in, late checkout, free breakfast, better lounges at the airport, airport security, things that take the entire travel experience and take all the things that are giant time suck, energy drain, frustrations, and replace them with things that are more luxurious, more comfortable, more ease, more spaciousness for basically no additional money. So those are the 3 buckets. So you want to get the most possible points, the best points. You want to get the most value out of them. And then you want to get the most upgrades and benefits. And if you do all of that, you're really maximizing everything that's possible for you. And you're going to get the best overall travel, the most of it, and the most overall savings. So those are the 3 big things.
Eli, so a bank will value a point with some value, but then a partner or hotel or airline will value it different.
Yes.
How come?
So this is the great question, right? These programs all just have different pricing models. And that's just basically how airlines decided to create them and how hotels decided to create them. At some point along the way, they decided to create partnerships between bank credit card programs and the airline hotels. Now, behind the scenes, there's all these deals where banks are helping to underwrite, purchases of leases for aircrafts, and therefore they get access to certain amounts of points. So it gets kind of, layered in the overall industry. But beyond that, it's kind of the same way that, if there's an opportunity for someone to use the Augusta rule with like taxes, right? Well, it's just an incentive. There's just a strategic way that the government has decided to create the tax code that allows you to take advantage of it. Same thing here. The banks know that in order for people to become consumers and use their cards, pay the annual fees, and then to make money on you over long term, they need to have opportunities to dangle some cheese, right? For people to want to get engaged and get these opportunities to win. So my theory on it is that there's basically enough meat on the bone for people to take it seriously, but most people will never figure it out. And that's how they kind of overall make their money long term on consumers using their cards and products.
Nice. Eli, you mentioned that kind of the key to unlocking better travel is finding that proper transfer partner.
Yes.
What services do you guys provide around that, or does that fall on the client?
So we have a couple levels. There's a DIY level where we'll like teach people how to do it. That's where people have more time and want to pay less and they're interested in learning. They want to be more hands-on. Then we have more of like a done for you hands-off version where people are like, I want an awesome experience. Give me the best opportunities. And then what we do in our process, we'll do like a planet stage. So we'll take the vision board, tell me about your dream trips, Japan, Bora Bora, Maldives, African safaris, Italy, Greece. Let's look at the points you have. Let's look at the spend you have, where you're flying, and we'll craft an entire experience that saves people 40, 50, $60,000. They don't really have to lift a finger. We do all the transferring the points in terms of figuring that out and make it super simple. When we work with clients, we don't actually log into their account to like click send on the transfer because then we have to have their Amex logged in and stuff like that. So for security reasons, that part's on them, but we basically get people to the 1 yard line, hand them the ball, and then they score a touchdown. That's basically how it works. And the result of that is, business and first class flights to exotic international destinations, luxury hotel stays, maximizing the value of the points as much as you can for that. And generally for like a family, for example, these trips to Europe, if you're going for 2 weeks, could easily be, $40,000, $50,000. On average, we're seeing people cut the price down by about 90% on the flights and hotels. And that means that you just have that cash that would normally go into vacation and it goes into the experience or into other investments to build your long-term wealth or back into your business. Or potentially it just means you took a trip that you'd normally do with your family and you went from doing it in economy and 3-star to total luxury and comfort, and you get to enjoy it more. So everyone has different reasons and ways they want to use the benefits.
Eli, for a typical business owner, maybe spending between 10 and 15 grand a month,
Yeah.
are there certain business cards or personal cards that they should be looking at?
Yeah. So what we do is we call it your travel DNA. So I'll give you a couple recommended cards, high level, but the real answer is that it is kind of custom for everybody because of what I mentioned, right? If you travel twice a month and you live in a Southwest hub like Austin or, I'm out in San Diego right now, this area, there's a lot of Southwest flights and you have 2 people traveling. Well, something like the Southwest Companion Pass is going to be a no-brainer for you because you get one person flying free. So what we'd want to do is stack the cards with Southwest and actually go that route. For most people, what we want to do is stack transferable bank points with like Chase, Amex, or Capital One, or some of these other banks. Citi now is a really good program too, because those have the ability to convert the points versus airline programs where you're stuck with that one airline. So each person's going to have a different setup. And then we'd look at, okay, based on the points that are going to make sense for you. I'll give another example. I grew up in DC. Dulles Airport in Virginia is like the big hub there. And that's a big United hub. Okay, so United, if I want to transfer points into United, the only option for a bank that does that is through Chase. So I wouldn't want Amex cards if I spend a lot of money in a business and live in DC and I'm flying out of Dulles a lot. I'd probably want to get Chase cards because then I can convert into United when I need to, or other airlines if I'm not flying United. Okay. So that's why it is different for each person. Then you add in the hotel side, and if hotel status matters, and all these things. That said, a couple really good recommended cards for a business owner, depending on what they spend on. Capital One Venture X for business is really good for people that have like high general expenses that don't fall into another bonus category. Bonus categories are things you're getting, 3 points, 4 points, 5 points per dollar spent on things like advertising or software or gas or things like that. So Capital One Venture X for business is really good there. People are spending a lot on ads. Amex Business Gold can be great. Chasing Preferred can be great. Chase Sapphire Reserve for business is a new card. That's a really good one. And then people that just have like a lot of like dining and software, maybe they have a team, a lean, like they weren't running a software company or something like that. Amex Business Gold would be really good. So Chase, Amex, and Capital One tend to be the 3 big players that we like to recommend, but which card within them will really vary on the business. But those are some of my typical favorites that I recommend.
Love it. Eli, what I heard you say was, well, what I'm doing is we do have like points that we're aggregating, and then we just kind of plan on accumulating those and then finding what's available to us. But what I think I heard you say is to actually do it in reverse and to think of kind of what your dream trip would be. And then you guys are there to help somebody find out the best way to achieve or get to that goal. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, think of it this way. Like, let's say, here's a simple metaphor. If
Yeah.
you were going to buy a business, right? And you were like, okay, should I find the business and then figure out how much money I need to raise to buy that business? Or should I just go raise as much money as I possibly can and then decide what I could buy? Right? You'd probably want
Yeah.
to find the deal first and be like, oh, well,
Yeah.
this business, I need to raise 1 million for this. So I don't need to go raise 10 million points, or sorry, $10 million points. I think in points now. Yeah, I don't need to raise $10 million if the acquisition's only 1 million. Right. So similar to travel, if you have a general idea of your kind of travel goals, hey, we like to do one big trip a year to Europe. I want to take the wife on a getaway to the Caribbean once a year. And let's say quarterly, we do a domestic trip as a family. A couple of us are driving, a couple are flying. Cool. Now we've got a good framework to work within, and we can start to allocate which points are you're going to need and how many. And then that will dictate partially the cards that we want to look at from there.
Love it, man. Right. So really what I or the listener would need to do is come up and figure out what their dream trip is, and then you guys are there to help them out. Do you guys help in figuring out kind of what that dream trip would potentially look like? For me, like
Absolutely. Yeah.
my kids are like teenagers, right? So I
Mm,
started to think about, well, what would be an awesome trip to take my kids on? And then I'd
yeah.
come to you guys and say, hey, can you help me plan this?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we help with the ideation stuff too, because like, for example, my background before this, I was running an international sports tour company. We take youth sports teams and families on international trips. So I've run thousands of people on international tours all over the world with kids and families. So I know the differences of like, you get two 16-year-old boys in Europe in a city like Florence where there's only castles or sorry, only churches to see. If you do that for too many
Yeah.
days, like there's hotel rooms that are getting things with damages in them, right? Like that's just how it works. So there's some different ways to think about where you want to go and the experience you want to have, what's gonna be the best value. A place maybe like Hawaii where there's a lot of outdoor stuff to do. There's amazing beaches. There's like endless adventure. That's a really good destination for someone that has like teens, for example, that wants just like a more outdoorsy trip. So point being, we absolutely advise on that. We call it our bucket list trip menu. So we have about 10 to 15 core places that are like the go-tos that, after working with over 1,000 clients, people ask about a lot. So places like, Italy, Greece, Maldives, Bora Bora, Japan, African safaris, the Netherlands and Paris, Hawaii, a couple places in South America. And we sent some people here. We have really good paths to making that trip really, really easy and really valuable. But it will really depend on each person. And so we'll help either advise on their custom trip on the best way to do the one that like, if you were like, hey, we have an event and it's in Dubai and I'm already going to Dubai, help me make the most of this trip. We'll work with that. Or people will come to us and say, we want an amazing family vacation. We want to get a little bit of history and a little bit of adventure. We have this many points. What should we do? And we'll present options too.
Well, Eli, one question that often comes up is, should I get a a card with an airline, or should I get one that's more of a transferable? How do you address that?
Great question. So for 99% of people listening, just black and white answer, transferable points are better. 99% of the people. The only people where the airline card is better is, well, two circumstances. One, if you live in a major hub, okay, you're traveling frequently, meaning like twice a month, and you're not already paying for first class, and you can actually hit the high level status requirements to get the upgrades. If that's you, then an airline card makes sense. Because what that means is you're going to be getting frequent, consistent upgrades into first class, and you weren't already going to pay for it, and you're actually going to get the status level potentially that will allow you to do it. Otherwise, you're better off getting the bank cards because the bank points can transfer into all of these major airlines when you want to, but you're not stuck with them. So if you lived in Dallas and you had an American card, and okay, now it's time you want to go to Paris, and there's an amazing flight on Air France, direct business class from Dallas to Paris. Well, if you only have American miles, you can't book it. You now have to fly American. It might be 4 times as expensive to fly on American when you want to go. But if you have the bank points, you get ultimate flexibility and choices. And that optionality is where the game really gets good. So you need to have those bank points. That's always the first play. Now, again, so if you have a lot of travel and you're in one major hub, then it can make sense. The other scenario is, so when we do custom card plans for people, we'll do an audit on their spend and create a plan. We generally look for 2 to 3 personal cards and 2 to 3 business cards. I think that's a good starter pack for anybody. It's not too much, but it's also enough to get a good return. Now, one of those cards, if you do travel semi-frequently and you just want like the bags or the lounges and stuff like that, sometimes you'll have an airline co-branded card in your stack, but it's not one that you actively spend on. Okay, and the reason for this is because you don't want to put spend on, let's just say, a Delta card and earn Delta miles and earn less miles than you should when you could be earning Amex points that are way more valuable and you'd be earning more of them for every dollar spent. So that's where you'd want to put your spend, but you might want to use the Delta card for some of the perks like the baggage and things like that. So in some cases, you just want the card as like getting the ancillary benefits. And in other cases, if you actually travel a lot, you're going to want to put spend on that card. But this is, Anthony, what you said is that's a really, really common mistake, by the way. Just one nail. I'm really glad you asked. And the hotel side too, like hotels is another layer where it's easier to get to higher levels of status. So for people that are like using a Hilton card, for example, way, way less value than what you're going to get from bank points, like a tenth of the value. So we don't want to be doing that unless we have a really specific reason, like you know exactly why and you've done the math on the return. Otherwise, it's going to be free value left on the table.
Eli, what I heard you were kind of talking about allocating expenses and um, oftentimes like paying payroll or contractors or something like that can trigger fees.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way? Do you have a rule of thumb on should I use this? Should I not?
It's a great question. Yeah. So at the end of the day, the entire thing that I just laid out, like points earned and points redeemed, the metric, the KPI I want to be thinking about, if we're all kind of numbers guys here, is return on spend. What percentage of my spend am I getting back? With cash back, is very simple, right? 2% card means 2% back. You spend $1 million, you get 20 grand back. Black and white. Well, when we do the point side, what we want to be thinking about is how many points per dollar and how many cents for each point. So if I get, let's say with payroll, right? If I spend 100 grand on payroll and I earn 2 points per dollar, but then I use those points effectively and I get 5x the value, like I was saying earlier, that's like our average, I'm actually getting 10% back. So yes, I'll pay a fee. It's a 2.9% fee to run payroll through a tool like Plastique or Zelle Money or even PayPal or Wise, or depending where your team is. But if I'm paying 2.9% and I'm getting 10% back, that's a 7% net savings on all those expenses, which is really big. Now, most people, they're going to use the wrong card, so they're only going to earn 1 point, and then they're going to waste their points. If they cash them out, they go to Amazon or they use them for the bank travel site. So they're actually going to lose money. So that's the bad. If you don't know what you're doing, that's what ends up happening. But if you do, you can get massive returns. So like for me, payroll's on a card, rent is on a card. A lot of our clients have inventory or mortgages or properties. They put them all on a card, and then what happens is you pay the card fee, but then your recipient will still receive a wire, an ACH, or a check in the form that they need it in, and they're good to go. So it's really important to get the numbers right, but when you do, it's juicy.
You got my ears tingling when you said putting payroll on a card. Uh, can you maybe expand that a little bit? Because you're typically talking about expenses or purchases that don't typically take a card, but you found a way around that. So I'd love for you to unpack
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, for sure. So it's pretty straightforward. You're going to have your employees or vendors or whoever you're paying. Some people, it may not be employees, but they might be buying, let's say it's a construction business owner, and they might have machinery that's like a $200,000 purchase one time, right? And it's normally an ACH or a wire. Well, you're going to tell them, hey, I'm going to pay you. And if it's a huge transaction like that, you might have to break it up. So there's a little bit of nuance there. So each person decides what's worth it to them or not. But you basically would just get the details for their ACH. You'd go to a tool like Plastique, Plastiq. You go in there, you say, enter the vendor information. And they'll say, how do you want to make the payment? You put in the credit card. It says, you basically just put in your card info. You hit the transaction. They'll tell you the date that the ACH is going to arrive in their account. And then we'll just charge your card with a 2.9% fee. Okay. You earn points on that. So again, with a card like the Capital One Venture X for Business, you're going to get 2 points for every dollar on that purchase, but you're going to get a 3% fee. So if you're using the points at a base value, you paid 3% and only got 2% back, so it's a bad deal. But if you can take those points and multiply the value through travel in the premium ways like I'm talking about, you're going to get, baseline I'd say is 6, 7, 8% back, up to 9, 10, 11, 12% back if you're if you're getting a really good deal. Okay. So you still have to know what you're doing to use the points, but when you do it right, it ends up being a huge savings. The other factor is that transaction fee, it comes off of your business's P&L, and points are non-taxable. So that 3% is going to reduce your taxable income slightly. And then the benefit, so let's say you did $1 million of transactions that way. You're going to take 30 grand off your P&L, but the 60 grand that you're getting back in the form of travel is non-taxable because points are non-taxable. So it also can actually help the business, depending on how your business is structured. Is it a lifestyle business? What do you want your numbers to look like? But that's another factor too.
Okay, now, yeah, I will say this sounds interesting and complicated at the same time. I know I'm sure we're diving into more how you help
Sure.
people, but is this part of one thing that you help people is to navigate when it makes sense to run some expenses through something like Plastique?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so most of our clients, to be honest, they're busy and they're focused on growth, and they should be. That's like when you're an entrepreneur, business owner, investor, your upside is your zone of genius, right? You need to keep as much of your time and effort in that. And all of a sudden get into credit cards and the fees, and it's just like, okay, just don't even, if it's going to take away from closing the next big deal, like it's probably not worth it for you. So for people that are in that situation, like we're always going to start with the lowest hanging fruit, because usually since they've been focusing on growth in business and other important things, family and whatnot, there's a lot of really low hanging fruit that they're not doing right away. So we always set that up first. Then if we want to go the next layer deeper, and it's like, hey, you're now in the game, you're getting amazing value, you're saving 50, 75K a year on travel, and you want to juice it more, and you want to start to increase the payroll earnings and all that stuff, then we put that as like a layer 2. Most people out of the gate, we just want to get them going and get them big wins, and then worry about the rest layer. Some people are really juiced about that, and in the very beginning they're like, hey, tell me what I got to do. I spend a lot on payroll, it's my biggest expense, I want to get this going, and they do it right away. But overall, we always pace it out based on the client's needs and capacity for new, small changes.
Anthony, I was thinking the same thing. Like, do you guys have any advice or suggestion on maybe getting a spouse involved, or maybe having an assistant come in and help out with some of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our clients, a guy named Craig Ballantyne, awesome guy. So
Oh yeah,
he's
we've had him on our podcast.
oh, you know
Cool
Craig?
dude.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, amazing guy, right? And so did he talk about like, what did he speak about? Like being really dialed with your time?
Discipline. He's the most disciplined man in the world, I think, is
Yeah,
one of his
yeah,
taglines.
yeah. So for him, right, discipline means focusing your time on what's important and not the distractions. So when we signed him up, I was like, oh my God, Craig Ballantyne, awesome, so excited to work with him. He's like, yeah. You're working with my wife, not me, just FYI. I was like, cool, no problem. So his wife got in our program. She's loved it. She's on with our team. She's planned him I think it was his 50th birthday party. Like they brought down 2 nannies. It's like, this is a cool thing, right? They have 2 young kids. He's big into life systems and keeping life, like allowing him to stay focused on the things that matter and he loves. So that means sometimes having nannies. Well, when you want to bring nannies on a trip to Cabo, all of a sudden the trip just got really expensive. So his wife was using our system to book the nannies a suite next door to take them down so they could come enjoy the trip at no additional cost to them, allowing him and his wife to have a better experience, more relaxed, more enjoyment. So a lot of times, yes, executive assistants, personal assistants, the spouse oftentimes gets involved. You're 100% on point with that. It's a really, really valuable way for a business owner to get the value, but not have to be the one in the weeds. And we already cover that layer when people work with us, but if they introduce an assistant, it's just like another layer. It's kind of like, if you're going to work with, a CPA, right? Like you want to understand how to read your profit and loss. If you're a business owner, you definitely want to know that stuff, but you don't want to be doing your books probably. So you want someone who can give you the information. You're like, okay, I understand our strategy. I sign off on it. Someone else handles it. That's the same way you want to think about travel. Ideally, if you really want to maximize it, is like you get why you have this status, the overall benefits, what trips you're going to do. You don't want to be in the weeds much beyond that if you're someone who's busy and has low bandwidth and focus.
Love it. Love it. Eli, what would be kind of the next best step if someone's out there listening, they want to get a dream trip on the schedule? What can they do next?
Yeah. So depending on how much help you want from us, there's a couple different paths you could go with us. The first one is just the free stuff. I put a lot of content out on Instagram, on YouTube now. So that's going to be Eli Travel Guy on Instagram and just Eli Facenda on YouTube. And then there's going to be a link I think you guys are putting down below, which is going to be freedomtravelsystems.com/IWC. And this is going to get you a couple things. You're going to get the CEO Points Playbook. It's normally $150 for anyone listening. You're going to get it for free. This is a custom guide I built after years of doing this. helping save tens of millions of dollars for clients, saving about 150K a year myself in travel. So you get access to that. That's my guide and playbook on how to do this on your own and get some of the shortcuts. And then if you want more help, you want concierge experience, you want basically a luxury points concierge in your pocket where you can just get your big trips planned and have it taken off your plate. There'll be an option to book a consultation call with us to see if we're a good fit to work together. And you can do that directly on that site as well, which is freedomtravelsystems.com/IWC.
Man, Eli, that was some great information. I would tell you, each time I think I know what I'm doing with my credit cards, I learn another way, which is one of the great things of listening to podcasts, of being able to improve with what we're doing. So, Eli, really thankful for coming on and appreciate the time and how you're helping people.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Would it be okay if I give just 3 really quick, actionable
Please.
one-hit items for people to take away, like if they don't do anything else?
Love it. Love it. Yeah.
Cool. All right, sweet. So one thing, apps and organization. If we want to simplify this, this is really helpful. A couple apps that are really good. Card pointers will keep all your cards, and because there's all these benefits, right? Uber credits, dining credits, hotel credits. Some of them are stacking. The Amex Business Platinum is now, I think, like $900 now, but it comes with an ungodly amount of amazing credits if you use them. Obviously, they're banking on a lot of people aren't going to use those, but I use them and I'm getting like 10 grand back a year worth of upgrades and additional value. So card pointers will allow you to organize all of those credits and even which card is best to use at certain times, depending on your transactions. And once you get the right cards, it makes it easy. That's a really good one.
Eli, on that, let me tell you, I got the Sapphire or the new Chase Sapphire, and it does have a lot of benefits with Lyft and like one of it's not Uber Eats, but one of those services.
Yeah,
but
like Grubhub and stuff.
And there's something with StubHub, like there's all these fancy things that sound cool to justify the annual fee. But I'm worried that I'm not going to take advantage and I'm going to leave that on the table. So I think this card pointers could create some great value.
Exactly. Yeah. If you do that and you set up, a lot of these fees are the credits are really good, but they're like quarterly or even some are annual, some are quarterly, some are semi-annual. So you can just set a quick calendar reminder for 15 minutes for yourself or your assistant even to go through and say, hey, am I using all of these? What things do I need to purchase? One of them that's amazing, right? The Amex Business Platinum has a $400 annual credit to Dell.com and you get 2 $200 credits. So for me, whenever I need like a new camera or a new piece of gear, whatever, I just have a calendar reminder towards like middle of June. I'll make sure to go on, purchase something for Dell, or I'll get something for a team member and do it again. So that's $400 back just off of one credit, right? Then the Fine Hotels and Resorts credit is a credit where you get kind of like almost like elite status without having status. So when I was in Switzerland last December, I took my fiance on a trip. It was a surprise proposal trip, and I'll tell you a little bit about this one. We actually flew over Emirates first class. It has an in-flight shower and bar. It was insane. So that was a $20,000 flight for 2 people that I paid 200,000 points for. Okay. So
200,000 points.
Yeah. Which is the equivalent of $2,000 for most people. So,
okay.
So that's, so that's what you can do. So I did that. We flew over that way. And then when we got to Switzerland, we stayed in Lucerne at this property called the Schweizerhof Hotel. This beautiful room looking at this lake, small, charming Swiss village, like Christmas time. I mean, it's picturesque beauty. We got upgraded to a junior suite at that peak season in Switzerland, which is already expensive, was $3,000 a night. I paid $0 for it. We got on-site credits, free breakfast, early check-in, late checkout, free Wi-Fi. So it ended up being around a $6,500 value for one weekend stay off of one credit from the Amex Platinum. Okay. So I use that example because number one, it was really fun. But number two is because there are so many little pieces like that where if you just use them even once or twice, you're getting so much value back. Even if you didn't use all the credits on the Amex card, you just use that one once. That's worth it in my book. Right. So that's going to be one app, Card Pointers. Another one is going to be Award Wallet. So that's going to be helping you organize your points into one place. Okay. So you can sync your Amex points, your Delta points, your Hilton Honors points, your Chase points all in one spot. It'll even notify you if they're going to expire. So that's going to be my first, this is going a little extra here, but this is going to be my first tip is the apps. And then the second thing is going to be, what was the second one here? The second one, is the fast track. If you're like, hey, I'm not traveling that much, but I do a decent amount of hotel stays. I don't want to get that involved with this. What's the best simple hack? So I don't really love Hilton as an overall program because their points program is very inflated. and you'll find deals that are much less with their programs. But the one thing that's great about them is they are the one program where you can get to the highest level of elite status just by holding their card. So the Hilton Aspire card comes with diamond status, which normally you have to spend a bunch or stay like 60, 75 nights with other programs to get to high levels of status, which is where the upgrades kick in, the real benefits are. With the Hilton card, just by having that card alone, you get that. It comes with suite upgrades. It comes with free night stays. It comes with weekend credits, a big sign up bonus. So that's another card where if you're like, I can't do that much, I just want to dabble. Overall, again, I'm going to recommend the bank cards, the transferable points cards, but that's a good one for someone who's like, just give me some quick sauce. Let me get a win. That would be one I'd say that's an easy win right there.
Oh, that's perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So those are my tips. I got a bunch more, but we'll keep them to those two for today.
Okay. No, appreciate it.
Eli, love it, man. Really appreciate this. And guys, he's got a ton more. And so we are going to bring him back. We talked about bringing him back maybe later this year or early next year for a live webinar for you guys, so you guys can ask him questions on maybe your situation. But he's going to dive into the extras that we didn't get to today. Eli, really appreciate you coming on the show. And thanks for the insight, man.
Thank you guys. You guys ask great questions. And I think the way you're thinking about this overall is really the right way to think about it too. There's a lot of people who take an approach that's just maybe too in the weeds. And I think for people that are investors and entrepreneurs, the way you guys are thinking about this is the right approach. So I appreciate you asking the questions you did.
Awesome. Thanks, Eli. And go make it a fantastic day.
Take care.
The opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the hosts and guests and do not constitute financial advice. Always consult a licensed professional for professional decisions. Thanks for listening to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future conversations on building wealth and creating passive income.
You can learn more about Infinite Banking and get additional resources at infinitewealthconsultants.com. Until next time, keep investing with intention, and remember, your financial freedom is within reach.